Welcome to Guelph Lakes Golf and Country Club. This opening hole is a par 4 that is relatively short. It's a dogleg left, and you can see that I just try and play it smart. I lay a 5-wood out to the middle of the fairway, and that leaves me a nice short approach into the green. I have a 60-degree wedge that I put a nice smooth swing on, and throw an absolute dart to start the day, and give myself a chance to begin the round with a birdie. Doesn't happen often for me.
The bird dog started off. What a start.
If you've watched any of my previous videos, you may have noticed that I usually start with a bogey, so this is a nice beginning to this round. It's always good to be in the red numbers early, and we follow that up with a par 3. I do not want to get too aggressive on this one because there are bunkers on the left that you can see near the pin, so I aim at the middle. It accidentally draws a little bit more to the right than I would have liked, but I'm on the green. And then the goal from here is just to simply 2-putt. There's no chance of trying to get too aggressive and go back-to-back birdies because that is an unrealistic putt attempt there. I would have liked to leave that a little bit closer, but I do make the par, and that's a -1 through 2 start. If you are new to my channel, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself here as we look at the third hole, which is a quite long and tricky par 4. My name is Jim, and I am a single handicap golfer. You might notice that I don't have the greatest swing in the world, but it's a pretty decent one. And as a single handicap golfer, sometimes it looks good, and sometimes it looks like this.
Stay up. I played it like a par 5 now. Yeah, it's a good.
So if you're wondering how I'm able to maintain a single handicap, even though I am not a former college golfer like so many people who are in this YouTube space, the way I laughed off that bad shot should give you a good glimpse. I have to use course management and strategy as my keys to success. Sort of like here, how I know it was a par 4, but I'm now treating it like a par 5. Trying to get on this green in 3, and try to 2-putt for bogey. However, it's very difficult to do that if you absolutely thin a 60-degree wedge straight into the trees. And now I have to drop that ball, and I am no longer scrambling for bogey. I'm just trying to get whatever I can out of this hole. I have to do a nice little flop over that sand, but there's no chance of stopping it anywhere near that pin. It rolls a little bit past, so my best hope here is to try and save a double bogey, but even when you have good strategy and good plans, it doesn't always go according to plan. So that's a tap-in triple bogey as the rain starts to come down, and we move to a par 4. In years past, one of the main weaknesses of my game was completely between my ears, where a triple bogey like that, after starting -1 through 2, would completely derail my round. But you're going to see me not allow that to take over. As I step up here, I'm still using my driver, even though I topped the last one. And even though I know I hit a little bit of a fade with my driver, I aim at the middle of the fairway because I do not want to miss right out of bounds. There is room to miss a little bit left, and you can see that's exactly what I did. So I'm in the rough, and I kind of have a blind shot into the green here, which ends up being just a touch short. And I have a pretty decent short game, especially the last few rounds. I've started to get my touch back. I don't know why it took me so long this golf season, but I have a lot of trust that if I am this close to the green, I can usually chip and putt to save par, and that's exactly what I do there. Just a little 56 degree that hits and rolls and stops right near the pin. Nice easy tap in, so I managed to still be +2 through 4, and that brings us to a par 5. Another area that I've started to improve my game is that when I get to par 5s, I no longer view these as must birdie holes. My goal here is just to play for par, and I do that by a nice smooth swing with my driver, and I just get anywhere up into the fairway, knowing that I don't need to go for the green in 2. And that immediately starts to take some pressure off of me. So even though I'm about 205 yards away and could probably get on there with a really strong 4-iron, I decide to use a 5 because I have a little bit better control out of it, and I'm just trying to get close enough to the green that I can pitch on. And you can see I do a really good job of leaving it just a bit short. And because I had a nice shot with my 56 degree last time, I decided to do that again. Nice little roll, and it checks up. So before you see my birdie putt, my playing partner Derek also has one. And after absolutely draining that, he does my birdie celebration, but adds in some nice cacaws, giving me some confidence to drain my own. And as I do, I notice that my playing partner Chris is accidentally in my way for my celebration, but that's okay. We just laugh it off, and why not just try that again as Chris steps aside, and let's just make sure I really knew what I was doing with that birdie. There we go. A putt so nice, let's just drain it twice. And that hole is a great example about why I try to play a smart and relatively conservative game. There's a lot that could have gone wrong if I tried to force myself into getting on that green in 2. I could have pulled it into the woods, I could have topped it and made a worse third shot. But by playing it smart, I gave myself a relatively easy birdie putt. Now, I didn't take any footage, but after that hole, the rain was absolutely pouring, so we had to stop for about 15 minutes before this next hole. You can kind of see that my shorts are quite a bit darker than they were in the previous hole, so while it was a little bit awkward to swing by being so drenched, I did manage to leave my 5-wood just off to the left rough, really wanting to avoid that pond that's on the right, and this was not a good swing here. You can see I kind of look at the club because I felt like that was all toe. And sometimes, you can just tell when you have a bad shot right off the club head. So because of how that second shot went, I'm now back in a situation where I'm just trying to play for a bogey. And again, the wet conditions really leave me short there. But the good thing is, with how wet it was, I felt pretty aggressive with this chip because the green was really drenched. I don't have it on camera here, but there was like a little puddle that was going on one spot. So that manages being a nice little chip and putt for a bogey, and I'll take that because next up is a short par 3, and you can't see the green from the tee box. So as you see this fly over, you can also watch me telling my buddies about a story where a cyclist was yelling at me because I honked at him for running a red light. And this is just a little note to cyclists: if you are biking on the road, you need to obey the laws. This was a nice easy pitching wedge swing that was going right at the pin, and I was trying to see it over these weeds, showing off my mad hops. And I knew it was good, but by the time I got to the green, it looked really good. I was all over the pin, just went a little bit long. Now this was a tricky putt for me because it is downhill, and it was also raining, so I was having a hard time reading the pace. It was right on line, I left it just a little bit short, and then almost missed that tap-in par, but thankfully it went in, and I'm managing to have a pretty good round so far, +2 through 7, by playing some nice, easy, conservative golf. We're back to a par 4 on the 8th hole, and I decided to use my driver again because there is a little bit of room to miss to the right and the left. However, I end up being in a bit of an awkward spot when it lands in the left rough here because I'm trying to go around these trees instead of over them. I was thinking that this slightly uphill lie was going to pull the ball more to the right, but didn't quite do it. And I did miss the actual shot attempt by my playing buddy Chris here, but he ended up putting this in from the fairway, does his own little birdie dance with some geese surrounding him, and I don't know if you can get any more Canadian than that, but after I let the geese clear, I'm trying to pitch it just over this bunker, and I do a really good job landing the ball in the rough, and it just bounces onto the green, and I have a chance to save a par, and thankfully I do. And this is why it's important to make sure that you are always working on your putting game. You can never practice putting too much. I know that the driving for show gets all of the attention, but I'm not putting for dough here, I'm just putting to save a good score. And unfortunately the tee shot on this 9th hole, I don't know if I forgot to record it or it just got lost in transferring, but anyways, Derek and I both ended up in this right rough, and I'm showing his shot because it's a nice approach into this green, and it was just a fun one to add in. I like to try and show a few shots with Derek because every time I golf with him it rains, so we try to show some positive things as well. And I'm trying to follow suit with his. I pull mine a little bit more to the right than he did, but I end up being on the green, and I have a chance to still putt for birdie on this 9th hole. There was actually no reason to make that sound so dramatic because I did not put enough pace on that putt, and I leave myself a little bit of a tester to try and save that par, so you can see that I don't take it for granted. I make sure I give it a little look, and that is exactly why, because there was some sneaky break and that thing almost missed. So through 9 holes, I am playing the exact kind of round that I want to if I'm going to break 80, and I am well on that pace. So I'm teeing off here on the 10th hole, knowing that I can probably afford about 5 bogeys on this back 9, and I will just break 80. But maybe that made me a little bit too lazy because that was not a great swing to start. I leave myself quite a bit back, and I have a nice little pitch on here to hopefully get the par, but I'll be okay if I 2-putt this for the bogey. So I step up to this one on this short little par 3, put a nice little putting stroke on, and it just sneaks in another side door. I'm not sure if the putting gods were just being a bit kind to me because of how poor the weather conditions have been today, but I will take whatever I can get. This next hole is a par 4, and it does have a bit of a blind tee shot. I'm never a fan of trying to hit to a fairway I can't see, and maybe that got in my head because I absolutely topped that thing. Just like on the 3rd hole, all I could do was smile and laugh it off. Now I'm playing this, you guessed it, like a par 5. So I take out my 7-iron, I put a nice smooth swing on this one, and I just end up in the right side of the fairway. So I have a chance to approach this green, but with the rain coming back down again, I absolutely fat that thing. It was sopping wet, and you can see how much just stayed on my club. In hindsight, instead of trying to use a 52 degree to just throw it at the pin, I probably should have just lofted down a little and tried to bump it up there and just get on the green. Because now I'm just fighting. I've got this bogey putt that's very long, and I just miss it off to the side. And this ends up being my first real show of frustration as I take a look at the sky again.
Come on.
And that speaks for both the weather and that hole. So the next hole is a par 4, and it's a pretty narrow fairway, and I did know from looking at the overview that I wanted to be more on the right side and not the left, because you can see that this green is a little bit protected. There's a narrow area through some trees up front. So I pull out my 5-wood because it's been a little bit more trustworthy, but I push this a little bit off to the left. So while it was a good strike, it is not a very good result, as I am a little bit buried into the rough here, and I'm trying to get through that gap, and this is not a very good swing with my 7-iron, as it does clear the hazard area, but I pushed it a bit to the left, and I think I just ended up going out of bounds, so I have to drop. I'm hitting my par here, and now this is back-to-back holes that are getting a little bit messy.
Back-to-back doubles. Enough of that.
And thankfully there is perfect timing, because the very next hole is a relatively straightforward par 5. You can see that there are some bunkers down the right hand side, but this gives me a chance to play conservative and just try to get on the green in 3. Maybe I'll be close enough for a birdie putt, or worst case scenario, try and just 2-putt for par. And part of that reasoning is because you could see on that flyover that there were also bunkers right at the very front of that green. So this was a nice smooth driver that finds the fairway. Follow that up with a nice smooth 5-wood that also finds the fairway. And now I have a good chance to approach this green from about 110 yards away. Trying to do anything I can to ensure I'm over the bunkers. If I'm on the green, that's perfect. And you can see that's actually even better than I was expecting.
I haven't taken enough footage of Derek today. It's been too rainy, moderately miserable. Let's take a look at this beauty. Oh, he's going right at the pin. What a shot. Not as good as mine, but it's a shot.
And as fun as it is to take some jabs at your friends as you are golfing, sometimes you need to be careful that the golf gods might come back and bite you too. We can see Derek's birdie putt falls a bit short, and although I had a great read on it, I thought I hit mine a little firmer and it still came up short. And although golf karma got me that time, I am still pleased with a par after those back-to-back double bogeys. And with 5 holes to go, I still have a chance to break 80, and we come up to a par 4 where I got a little bit tricked by the course preview that I had read on their website. It was warning to really avoid left, and you wanted to stay on the right side of the fairway, and that led to me not hitting my driver. I was trying to control my 5-wood that I left a little bit out to the left, and thankfully it wasn't really that bad on this left side, so I probably could have just hit my driver and tried to clear this bunker that was in front, but instead I had a 9-iron out of the rough that I left a little bit off to the left-hand side. And this is a really important moment that I had in my round, where I had my 56 degree because I'd been chipping well with it, but you can see on these practice strokes that I was noticing that it was really wet, and it felt like I was almost chipping into the grain, so it was grabbing the club a little.
Okay, if you want to go, I can't. I don't trust it.
And you might have even been able to hear how wet it was just from me walking away. So what I decided to do is go back to my bag and grab my 9-iron. And I'm just going to do a little bit more of a bump and run here, because although this little ridge in front is something I would have normally liked to chip over, the conditions made me decide to do this instead, and it was a really good decision because I left that quite close to the hole, and that makes for an easy tap-in par. And hopefully this is a good reminder that when you are golfing, it's nice to have a game plan, but you need to be willing to adapt. It's important to let the lie dictate what you're going to do for a shot. And on a hole like this, you also need to let the course layout dictate what you choose to do. It's a sharp dog leg right, so I just decided to lay out to the middle of the fairway with my 5-wood, and then I'm graced with some cool information from Chris.
They have Tetris that you can play on the side of a 7-Eleven cup now. You see that commercial? No.
How?
It's like a promotion.
That's crazy.
If anybody knows more about this Tetris on a cup, I would love to hear it. Put it in the comments below if you've ever played. That's neat. And my approach shot is a little bit trickier than I was anticipating because I'm trying to get around this tree that I didn't quite get far enough off the tee to clear, and I end up just a little bit short of the green. And as the rain starts to come down on us again, I try to pitch this up close to the hole, and I'm a little bit further than I would have liked. I'm also about to have a seizure from Derek's attempt at some camera work there, and I step up to the par putt, just miss it off to the right, and that is an unfortunate bogey, but we have to just shake that off, and we have 3 holes to go. And because of that bogey, this is the first time in the round that I decide to get really aggressive. This is a potentially drivable green, or at least getting close to it. So I pull that out instead of just laying it up into the fairway. And I'm aiming at the tree in the middle, hoping to fade, but you can see I just pulled that one, and now I got some work to do.
This is a stressed out face right here.
This is a scary one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to break 80.
Yeah.
I think I can bogey maybe one of the next 3 holes.
We gotta...
And this is the second shot in to a very tight green over that bunker. So 85 yards.
Not there. But there.
Though I did get fortunate that where I pulled it was actually enough of a gap to still go for this green, and I put a pretty good swing on it, and I did just make it on the front.
No, he's on the green.
And that is the face of a man who knows he got very fortunate. That was not a good strike off the tee, and in hindsight, I should have played this hole just with the general conservative smart plays that I was. I might have even been able to have a better look at a birdie. However, I still am happy. I 2-putted for the par. I am +7 through 16 holes, and this is where things get a little bit tricky for me. This flyover is actually one of the few where you can see where the pin actually was. It was right in the middle of the green, but it's behind that front left bunker. So what I'm trying to do here is aim a little bit off to the right and fade in a 6-iron. And I think I put a decent swing on it, but my aim must have been a little bit off.
That could be awesome. That could be awesome.
Right in the bunker.
Close to
You were
being-
right, you were pin high.
Yeah, that's...
You feeling it?
I thought I was aiming enough to fade it.
And you can hear, despite the positive words from my playing mates, that ended up right in the bunker, and this is not a good attempt out. It was my only bunker shot of the day, and the sand was quite wet, and I ended up just almost thinning that thing across to the other side of the green. So now this is a chip for par, and I'm just trying to get close. Oh dear.
A double hit stop.
That's pretty rare.
D-cell.
That was terrible.
And yes, that certainly was terrible, as I now am really hoping that I can drain this bogey, and I miss it. So that double bogey means that now I enter the 18th hole, and I need a birdie to break 80. If I par it, because this is a par 5, I will get 80 and still be satisfied with this round. But my goal is to really break 80 because I've been playing with the proper strategies. It's just a few holes have really been biting me in the butt. So I started off with a nice center of the fairway hit with a 5-wood, and I'm trying to get as far up towards the green as I can, so it's a nice little draw on my 3-wood that finds the fairway again, and I've got about just over 100 yards to get up to the green. It's kind of in the middle of those 3 roofs that you can see, and I'm just a little bit right of my line, but I am on the green.
Oh my gosh. I've had to birdie this hole if I'm gonna break 80. I have to make this putt for 79. First time this season. Oh man. Golf's not easy.
And unfortunately, I had a good read on the putt. I knew there was some big break, but I gave it a little bit too much respect, missed it a bit high, and I do have a nice easy tap-in par to finish at +9. That's an 80. I am disappointed that I didn't break 80. Derek also taps in for par, so at least I'm satisfied that I beat him by 1. And we can see at my scorecard that that triple bogey and the 2 double bogeys are certainly the big bumps in the road that if I could have eliminated some of those strokes, I easily would have broken 80 today. But I know it's coming if I just keep sticking to my strategy. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, and hope to see you next time.